second while everyone's out there and just see if you hear anything. So if you hear anything, I'll turn them off, I'll mute them back. Testing, 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 testing,
I
testing.
don't know, I might get slapped on the lawsuit.
Testing, testing. There should be a 30-second delay though. You got it? Okay, I'll review.
George,
You got everyone here?
could you lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
Good, thank you. Yes.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for the Planning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barlow? Mr. Brooks?
Here.
Mr. Painting?
Here.
Mr. Disasway?
Here.
Mr. Dickerson?
Here.
Mr. Cross?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mr. Kersey?
Here.
Mr. Purcell?
Here. I don't think she was supposed to do that.
Oh,
So the first order of business on the agenda tonight is the election of a chairman for the 2025 year. Do we have any nomination? We'll open the floor for nominations for chairman for the Planning Commission.
Motion to nominate Mr. Disselway for chairman.
Second. Moving nominations be closed.
Second.
We've had a nomination for chairman for Mr. Disasway and a second, and nominations have been motioned and seconded to be closed. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Congratulations, Chairman Disasway, and I will turn the meeting back over to you for election of vice chair.
Thank you. Next up on order of business is election of vice chairman. The chair will entertain nominations for vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Brooks?
motion to nominate Mr. Dickerson for vice chair.
Motion to nominate Mr. Dickerson. Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any other nominations?
Moving nominations be closed.
Motion and nominations be closed. Do we have a second for that? Second. Very good. All right, we have a motion for vice chairman for Mr. Dickerson, properly moved and seconded. Nomination were closed, properly moved and seconded. So with one roll call vote then?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Dickerson. Thank you for another year. We've already had the roll call. Mr. Barlow is available. He's just not here yet. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the invocation led by Commissioner Dickerson and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Goodwin.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us together tonight. We ask you to give us the wisdom of King Solomon as we deliberate the business of Louisa County. Help us to agree, even when we may disagree. Help us to do it in a friendly manner. Bless and protect us tonight on our way home, and may everybody have safe travels after this meeting concludes. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Remain standing if you can. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item up is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any comments on the agenda? Very well. With no further discussion, we'll have roll call on approving the agenda.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
The agenda is approved. Next item up is approval of the minutes of the meeting from December. The minutes of the meeting from December in packet pages 2 through 6 of your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any comments on the minutes? No comments? Then, Ms. Johnson, we have a roll call?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very good. The minutes are approved. Next item is consent agenda. We do not have a consent agenda for this meeting, which brings us to the public address. Public address period is a time when any member of the public can come forward and speak to the Planning Commission about any item that is not on the agenda as a public hearing item tonight. If you wish to do so when I open the public address period, you'll please come forward. I do have one card, so we do have some organization. We'll deal with cards first. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. If you represent an organization, let me know. That allows you to have 5 minutes to speak. So, public address period is open. The first item I have is a card for Robert George.
Good evening. I'm Robert George, 384 Overton Drive, Cuckoo District. I represent Overton Fork Property Owners Association. I'd like to say hi to Mr. Painting, welcome. It's nice seeing you other than at a sporting event, Little League wise, whatever. I've never seen you without a ball cap on or in a coat and tie.
Thanks, sir.
As I've stated in the past, Overton Fork is almost, well, it is 100% easement property, whether it be Dominion or the 2 lots on the other side. Dominion doesn't allow certain things that the county requires us to have at a common area. Porta potties or bathroom facilities, the dry hydrant. Dry hydrant we are working on through, Captain Luck is helping us out for Louisa to get a grant through the forestry program. I don't think timing-wise, we're gonna hit it when we're done with our project. So, and the Porta-John issue, I don't think we'll ever go away with Dominion after talking to them over and over and over again. But we would like to see some kind of allowance that, the staff would have, so we don't have to come to county meetings, whatever. Grant the staff the opportunity to give us a special exception or a variance, whatever it may be, and whether it be a limited time or a permanent thing, because like the dry hydrant, we will do it. If we can't get it for free, we will pay for it and have it installed. It's not necessary in our common area, and I'll cite January 1st this year, I looked out my back door, my wife had said she heard sirens and saw lights, and I went out the back deck, and I saw two apparatus at our ramp hooking up the strainer and the piece of rigid pipe. They pulled right down the ramp, loaded up that truck, loaded up the truck behind them full of water. Didn't need a dry hydrant, didn't complain, didn't have any problems whatsoever, and they never will. Our ramp, they like our ramp. It's very deep water, easy access, plenty of room for them to turn around, rearrange their vehicles and everything. And they've stated, unless they're doing a training where they have a rookie, where they want to make sure they can hook up to a dry hydrant, whatever, or test a dry hydrant, they 99% time they will not use the dry hydrant. They'll use the ramp and the strainer box. The Porta-John issue, our community is not complaining. They haven't called, no one I know has contacted the county about not having a bathroom facility that the county requires for more than 25 lots. Also, the county requires it during construction that we have one down there. I got rid of the two we had to appease Dominion. Our contractor has brought one back in. Dominion hasn't seen it yet, so I'm sure we're going to have a little tussle here in the next week or three if Mr. Payne goes down there and he sees it, and we'll address that issue when we have it. But once again, it'd be nice to have some help from the county, either with Dominion or where the county isn't going to require us to have one, especially since our members are not complaining to the county about not having bathroom facilities. Hopefully Dominion will work this out with the E. coli breakout and all the stuff that they're fighting with on other issues on that. But you know, for right now, we need some latitude from the county so that we're not upsetting Dominion, because I don't think Dominion's going to go the other way, so we're not upsetting the county. So any help, if you can keep this up in the back of your minds or keep it fluid on, as far as we're concerned, we appreciate it. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and address the Planning Commission on any item that is not a public hearing tonight? And please state your name and your voting district.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Telly Manos. I work in the solar industry. I'm not local to Louisa County, but I've lived in Virginia for quite some time. Richmond, Virginia, Northern Virginia. My first duty station was at Fort Eustis. I went to Virginia Tech, so I've been around the state quite a bit, but not currently living in Virginia.
Sir, I have a card for you. It says proposed solar ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah, solar ordinance this is the one that is on the item tonight. I'm going to apologize to you because it's not a public hearing. It was a public hearing last month, but we held the public hearing, and that public hearing is closed, so there's no more opportunity for the public to speak. But thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak? Very well, then I'm going to close the public address period. Public address period is closed. And we'll move on to item of unfinished business. First one is ordinance 2024-14. This is the land use regulation change for the solar ordinance. And Ms. Buckler, do you have a brief presentation to reset us here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Faye, and I am standing in for Mr. Kuhn, who is unavailable to be here this evening. As you said, the public hearing was held at the December Planning Commission meeting regarding the amendments for solar siting agreements. And the, excuse me, the purpose of those proposed amendments is to establish minimum requirements for solar siting agreements and to establish a consistent policy framework that benefits the community and the developers. At the last meeting, the Planning Commission members asked for some examples of siting agreements from other localities. Mr. Kuhn forwarded on January the 2nd, excuse me, siting agreements from 8 different localities. We did not print those because they were about 140 to 60 pages in total, but he did provide that information back on January the 2nd. The Planning Commission also asked for information on the percentage that was cited in the ordinance to be provided by the developer and how the affordable housing was chosen. Those are questions that staff does not have answers to, and those would need to be directed to the board and the solar committee who presented those recommendations to the board for the policy. I'm available to try to answer any questions that you may have, but that's just a summary of the items from last month.
Thank you, Ms. Buckler, for that reset, and I think we'll just go back to the board discussion now.
Okay.
So in light of the information provided, I apologize, the commission discussion. In light of the information provided, where does the commission stand now? Where,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Goodwin?
bottom line up front, I believe I understand what the county is trying, or the Board of Supervisors is trying to accomplish. And I do not at all disagree with what they need to do. But I have serious problem with the details and the implementation of getting to that point. With your permission, I'd like to kind of go into what some of my concerns are.
Please.
Currently, we are number 4 in the state in terms of growth, population growth. That's all counties and all cities, number 4. We're increasing at a rate of approximately 500 a year and have been since 2010. Only 1 year was it off, and that was 2019, 2020 when COVID broke out. It didn't flatline, it continued to go up, but if you take that year out, it is almost a straight line. So we're adding 500 people to this county every year. I'm having a hard time matching that up with the fact that we've got a housing problem. Because apparently the buyers are not feeling it. Adding 500 people to our population every year, to me, runs counter to what the citizens told us when we put the comp plan in place. Maintain the rural character of this county. This growth model that we've got is not sustainable if we hope to maintain the rural character of this county. Pure and simple. Second reason, I'm not sure what a affordable housing initiative is. I've never heard a definition of what an affordable house is. I've never seen a county goal that says this is how many houses would satisfy our need for affordable housing. Nor have I seen a budget figure that says when we get a plan in place, this is what we need to and are willing to spend on it. And the last point I want to make kind of wraps it all up. We just got presented with a capital improvement plan north of $212 million. All projects delineated, described, and prioritized. Yet we have a potential source of revenue coming in. Don't know when it's coming. Don't know how much it's going to be. But regardless, none of the things on the CIP even came to mind to say we need to pay for some of that. That to me is not fiscal planning. That's not what we're up here for. Just to find new ways to spend money when spending that money is, we already have affordable housing. Go back to the first 2 points. 500 people a year coming into this county, and what are we doing? Trying to get the door open wider. Doesn't make sense. The other point that I want to address is the compensation to neighbors. I'll admit, maybe I misunderstood. But every single application for a solar farm is coming here with a statement that says that this has no detrimental effect on neighbors. None. Property values don't go down, nothing's gonna run off the property. No detrimental impact. Yet tonight, we're looking at a proposal that's gonna pay people $500 for every parcel around the farm. I either misunderstood all the information that I've gotten over the 6 years I've been here looking at solar applications, or I'm misunderstanding what's in this, because the two don't meet. They either have a detrimental effect and people need to be compensated, or they don't, which is one of the bases we've been approving them all along. Again, I'm going to close by saying I agree with what the county is trying to do, but the details and the implementation do not add up to good planning. And that is going to direct my vote.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brooks?
Like Mr. Goodwin, well, I'm gonna say, I think I know what the county's trying to do, and this certainly would get it there very quickly, I believe. With me, the $156,000 that it comes to now based on its budget is what it would cost per megawatt. Looking at, I picked out two in what Mr. Coon sent us this week. The one in Hanover County was roughly $23,000, and I picked the one in Patrick County, which was 12 megawatts. They were charging about $19,000. That's a long ways between that and where we are. I feel like I know where they're trying to get to, but I think we need to be fair and reasonable with what we're throwing out there and have some justification besides, I'm just trying to stop this and trying to be fair to both sides, because I read somewhere that it was to benefit the community and the developer. Would question that based on 0.01% of the budget. So I would like to know where that number came from, and is it really fair to be his Hanover County at $23,000 and we're a whole lot higher than that? And maybe we need to be because of what we already have on the ground. But I think that needs to looked at or justification for where that came from. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Quarles?
regarding Commissioner Goodwin's comments, and making reference to Commissioner Brooks' comments on the $156,000 per megawatt. We probably have come to a point where we have to look at the processes and the slowing down the processes regarding these, because we've had some negative fallout from the effects of poor planning when it came to positioning these solar farms. And maybe, I don't know, I didn't make it up, but maybe this is a way of breaking the system and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's look at this, slow down a second here, and let's look at this and make sure that this is beneficial, one, for us, but it's also has to be, maybe it's a restoration vehicle for the damage that has not been fixed as well, because we haven't fixed the problems. The problems still exist out there. We've not done anything but stuck a little Band-Aid on it, and there's no effect. There's no positive effect if you speak to the people that have been involved. Nothing's happened for them, you know. But yet we continue to look down this slope and say, okay, well, this has no impact on anybody. It shouldn't have any impact. Well, it does. So maybe this 156,000 per megawatt is a process of restoration, possibly. It could be, or it could be something to say, hold it, let's look at this. Let's look at this a little more closer. My comment.
I will add my 2 cents in here at this point. I read the, Mr. Coon's not here, that's right. I read the 8 siting agreements, and I was quite amazed at the variety of charges that siting agreements include. Particularly the one in Sussex. Admittedly, that was large. It was a 600 megawatt solar field and a 400 megawatt battery storage facility. So that was a very large facility. But that included millions of dollars of milestone payments that I was just shocked to see that at each one of the milestones there was a payment due the county. There is variety in the capacity charges, the per megawatt charges, quite a bit of variety. So from item 1 for me, I was looking for some logic, some sensibility to how the charges are calculated, and I haven't found any logic to any of it. So I really, to the extent the county wants to make a capacity charge, a per megawatt charge as an annual contribution, I have no way to calculate that. I'd have to just let that go with the county because I couldn't begin to tell you how. Item 2 on affordable housing, I agree, I have not yet heard of an affordable housing solution by a government that has accomplished anything. My understanding of the forces at work in housing availability and housing pricing, it's a free market issue, and the market is going to solve the problem. Typically, when governments get involved in trying to solve market issues, the requirements and regulations drive the costs up so much that there's never a solution that's cheaper than what the market can do. So for me to vote for this, I would have to completely strike item 2. Item 3, the project timeline requirement, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I don't see any issue with that. Item 4, as I mentioned at the December meeting, compensation for adjacent property owners. I believe I mentioned the same thing then, that we're always told that solar projects, you can't see them, you can't hear them, nobody goes to work there, there's no traffic, there's no emissions, there's no problem, there's no nothing, there's no reason for anybody. And as we found out from going through many of these over the years and asking the tax department here, there's no negative tax consequences on the value of the property next door. So I see no reason to begin with to have some charge to mitigate some impact that we're told doesn't exist. And I'm always completely adverse to creating different tiers of taxpayers based on something subjective. Whether it's paying for your taxes or paying for your power bill, I think this is a bad, bad thing to do. If you really want to mitigate the impact of something, I still say the poor folks that have to live next to an Amazon data center, there's an impact that needs mitigation. And that's going to hit them not only with sound and traffic, it's also going to hit them, I fear, in their pocketbooks with value of their property. Because I'm not sure that living next door to a data center is going to be the best for their property value. Remains to be seen, but I think that would be a proper place to put mitigation. I just don't understand how mitigation works for a solar field here in this regard. So for me to vote in favor of this, I'd have to strike items 2 and 4. And item 1, I don't even know what to say for, except somebody smarter than I am is going to have to calculate that, because I don't understand how that logic came about. Any other?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Quarles?
in response to what you just said, with all respect, we have seen negative fallout when it comes to the solar fields. And where we can't forecast mudslides and extra mud going into creeks that have not yet cleared up, that's a negative impact, and that directly affected several farms, their way of life, their positioning of cattle and everything else. So it can affect if it's not properly planned.
And I apologize, Mr. Quarles, you're right, that has been an issue. I usually think of the seeing, the hearing, the traffic, those kind of things. You're right, that has been a significant issue. I'm not sure any of those people would feel like a $500 tax payment or a $500 electric bill payment would sufficiently compensate for the effect on their lives.
They would not
Yeah,
feel like it'd be
Yeah.
significant, but at least a step that says, somebody says, you know what,
yeah.
this is a concern, and we're working toward this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, to turn our back to it and say, oh, well, it's not gonna really help, and we don't really care, that's kind of how, the message that we're sending, if we do nothing. If there's nothing there, and we take things off the table that are built to safeguard these things, you're just basically saying it doesn't exist, in my opinion.
You have any other comments on this ordinance item?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dickerson?
When you compared what we were given as a proposal to the 8 others that we looked at, the annual contribution doesn't seem to match up. A lot of them had about a $1,400 megawatt a year fee versus the 156,131 megawatt a year fee, so that's over 100 times greater. Some did have other fees, as you mentioned, built in there. Some had escalation clauses of that initial amount. But I think that needs to be studied and refined a whole lot better before we can find it acceptable. The affordable housing issue, let's just say it's a wonderful world. We get this siting agreement, this money cures affordable housing. Then where do we spend the money? Many of the counties in the 8 proposals we looked at, it went to the capital improvement plan, general budget, and other things in the county plan of work, not one specific thing. So I think having it wider range with more options for the Board of Supervisors in future years to evaluate, debate, and use is much preferable to having it set as it is in this plan. The project timeline, I don't have a big thing with. The adjacent property owners, like many of you, not all of you, I don't see we need the $500 per neighbor payment in there. So those are my comments.
Very well.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kersey?
we started this discussion last meeting. I don't see that a whole lot has changed. We have more information. I was on the page with you and your comments at the previous meeting that the only item that we could, in good faith, support would be item 3. So I'm going to make a motion that we send this back to the Board of Supervisors with that recommendation of only item 3.
We have a motion on the table to send this ordinance change to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval for item 3 only. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further conversation on this?
Mr. Chair,
I'm reading.
All right, Mr. Goodwin.
I think the board's mindset on this was pretty clear. It was a unanimous vote. And if we go back with any part of it, I fear it's just gonna, like turning loose at the steering wheel when you're in a rut, it's gonna stay in a rut. I don't want any part of this, not until it is better thought out. So until we get something, right now, it seems to me like a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle that is put together from about 20 different kits, and the pieces don't fit together. And I'd like to have something to consider that actually has a possibility of being solved and worked. So I'm not going to vote for any part of this because I don't want my fingerprints on it if it's going to go right back into the rut that it came to us in. And that may be hard, but that's how I feel about it. That strongly. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Brooks had,
Go ahead.
yeah, previous.
Item 3, you told me the project timeline requirement is the only thing that the motion is on the floor to approve, which is really about the only thing, as far as this discussion has said, that's in agreement, is the timeline. I don't know if I'm in agreement with that, except if we don't attach something to it, our concerns with everything else, or do we need to make a recommendation since a committee came up with this scheme? Does it need to be a committee from the planning commission to get with that committee to address these items, or is this a hot ticket items got to go somewhere in there and need up and down vote? Do we know these questions?
We have a representative from the board who may be able to shed some light on that question.
Well, to start off with, I'm certainly not aware of it being a hot ticket item that requires up-down vote. Like I said last time, it was sent to the planning commission to go through it and see if you come up with some good ideas of how to put some regulations in place. I know if it comes back to the board, we're going to be discussing these exact same things y'all are talking about. Like I certainly understand why a compensation for the joiners was put in here by the committee, but as far as the discussion at the board level as to how they come up with $156,000 or the $500 payment, none of that has been talked about, worked through. It was just sent to the planning commission, to look at this thing and see what you think. If you want to send it back to the board with Mr. Curtis's motion, that's perfectly fine. But when it gets to the board, I I certainly suspect we're gonna be having conversations as to where these numbers came from, how did the committee come up with it, and that kind of thing. And we will be hashing it out. We've had a real influx of solar farms, and the requirements for them are all over the place, in different localities. If you ride down 81, there's what was a dairy farm is now a solar farm. There is not I don't really see that it needs to be called a farm. There's nothing farm-like about it, but there are no buffers. It's right on the side of 81 in a wide open field. So evidently they have zero regulations on it in that particular county. So, we've had an awful lot of these things come in. At the board level, we talked about different buffers, and now I think we've had one that presented to you all over next to Gold Mine Church that had 300-foot buffers and that kind of thing. But I think what we're looking for is to, come up with something. And I think the committee came up with this as a first shot. And that's the reason it was forwarded to the planning commission. Now, I certainly don't know of anything that is pressing or any reason that we would have to say you got to approve this or don't, just send it on. But if you're not comfortable with it and want to send it on back, then we'll be having a discussion. And in all likelihood, it'll have to come back again with from different clarifying aspects. But, it's certainly, because it's an ordinance change, it comes back to the planning commission. I mean, that's a law. So, and that's what it has done. Now, like I say, the board has not had the discussion that you all are having now. So when this comes back to the board, and your recommendation can certainly be just item number 3. But when it comes back to the board, we're gonna be having discussions as to where these things came from and that kind of thing. And it might go through. I just have one vote, but I know it's going to get some further discussion. You all, like I say, it's your prerogative. You can discuss it further, try to come up with something, or you can send it back with whatever your motion's going to be, and we will take it from there. It has met the requirement to come to the board. I mean, to the PC, and then it goes back, and the board, depending on how many votes they've got, if it's 4 votes to pass it as it is, then it'll go through. But not real sure that's the case. I think it's sent here to get it discussed, and like things normally come to you. And then when it comes back to the board, then we will take whatever it is you all send back and address that and this together. And hopefully we can come up with something. That's my understanding of this right now.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Goodwin.
I'd like to second something that Commissioner Brooks said about having a joint working group to look at this. And I think that discussion that Supervisor Barlow talked about, we can have that in a working group and have it brought back to the separate bodies. And we're not working from different sides of the fence. We're actually working together, and both bodies are getting the same information. So I think that's a good idea, Mr. Brooks.
We have a motion on the floor right now to deal with.
Right.
So the first question is whether the original motioner wishes to withdraw the motion or proceed forward.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've listened to the discussion and the representative from the board talk to us, and he makes good points, but I am very concerned with committees of 2 members drawing and drafting things and then just sending it to us to offer some input. This could have been sent to us to study, to come back with a recommendation, and not come to the table ready to go. We're an advisory group and could have studied the matter. Didn't have to be presented this way. And it is with great disdain that I see other things of the county matters discussed in the back room and not much out for the public to get some transparency. And that's the reason that I put this motion out, to put it back the way it is. I have no problem with discussing the issues out for the public to hear. And certainly they are sensitive issues. Many of these are. But we need to have the discussions out in the public so people understand, so they're brought along with us, because these things have long-term implications once they're put in place. So I'm not withdrawing my motion.
There we go. Thank you. Mr. Quarles, did you have a comment?
I guess we'll deal with the motion and then I can comment.
Very well. Any further discussion on the
question.
motion? Mr.
Question.
Brooks?
Can that motion, can we attach something to that motion? As in, we're eliminating all but one item out of the whole packet. But we have other points of issues that we have that's been discussed here tonight. With a yes vote, can we add that to make sure Georgia's concerns, your concerns, everybody's concerns are itemized and goes along with the vote? No, we just have to back up and punt.
Ms. Smith, would that be
So-
an amendment
so
to the
will
motion?
Well, what you just could do is just withdraw and have a new motion with what you want included in it.
I mean, that would cut down on time if we, I don't know, what do y'all think? Is it?
I guess it comes down to the vote then.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Just
Goodwin?
clarification, are you saying that we would forward 3 with no changes, but in what we forward, we would attach explanations of why we could not endorse 1, 2, and 4,
Correct,
so that they would get that information?
correct. I mean,
Yes, that would be up to
I'm
them.
partially in favor of the motion because I'd like, we're only approving what we can approve. But we need to have the opportunity to address our concerns.
I would certainly accept a friendly amendment to address those. I just want to see this group take a firm position.
I second that.
Okay, I knew you would. So I have no reservation in accepting amendment to address your concern.
All right, and who was the second on that?
Mr. Dickerson.
Mr. Dickerson, are you in favor of accepting a friendly amendment?
Most definitely.
Thank you for that. Mr. Quarles, you had a further comment?
Do we want to do that, or do we actually want to just take some time and put this together since there's no time pressure on this? And
Well-
get, and get a firm stance on where we're at? Because it's kind of convoluted if we send it back with one item, but then we have some friendly suggestions, if you will. We're kind of not doing what it was sent back to do, is what I'm hearing Supervisor Barlow say. We have time to work this out. Maybe it takes a committee. Maybe it takes a committee plus a work session to iron out and get a firm stance on this.
Well, we have a motion on the floor that the motioner is willing to take a friendly amendment, but unwilling to withdraw, so we have to disposition the motion.
Understand?
So if there's is there any further comment on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
I'm not sure you've got the basis, Mr. Chairman, to write up what we want to write up. They were the opinions of individuals that were stated around the dais. And it's not, there's no evidence to say that everyone supported 500 people per year is enough, which is what I said. Or that someone else said that we don't have a unified position on what that explanation is going to be. I'm not sure who drafts it and how do we do it. Am I making any sense at all?
That's,
You are.
yeah, that's what I said, it need to be itemized what those items were.
I mean, names attached to
If-
them? Because we didn't vote on, this is why don't like number one, or we can't endorse number one. And this is why, and we all vote on that. Now you got a position rather than stated opinions around the board. And I may have said something that Commissioner Payne didn't agree with. I didn't vote on that. So we don't have a solid commission position about why we couldn't do 1, 2, and 4. That's a concern I've got, and maybe our parliamentarian can.
Basically, what you're saying is you want a more detailed motion,
Yeah,
but there has to be some agreement.
That would be it.
I guess so. We don't have a common understanding at this point. We've heard a lot of people talk about 1, 2, and 4. We've really never locked arms and said, this is our position on 1, this is our position on 2. I'm not sure how we do that unless we draft something and bring it back for some sort of a vote, but right now, I'm uncomfortable that on a lot of these topics, only one person spoke up on some of the details. And other people may be very uncomfortable saying what I said. I think that's probably true a lot of the times, but anyway.
Well, Commissioner Dickerson raised a point here in your discussion. We have a motion with an amendment, but the amendment doesn't really exist. It's a concept, it's not an amendment stated. So, in order to vote on this, we need to have the amendment stated properly. And until we do, I don't guess we can vote. Unless.
Well, it's not going to be a clear motion.
It
You're
will
right.
not,
Yeah.
no. And I'm a little unclear, aside from sitting down and starting to write out an amendment, where we would go from here.
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. Is this something that you're talking about discussion? Is this something that you would want to the community development, to the staff to look at further and explain before you actually?
Well, I think my sense of the amendment is, the question from Mr. Barlow was, what is it that the commission, after reviewing this, would like to tell us, to
Right.
better inform us as we go through
Okay.
their analysis? So we need to tell them something
Okay.
other than cut these items out.
Okay.
Cut them out for the following reason. I mean, the first item I would say and if I just had to throw something out, and this may not be the agreement of everyone, which is part of the problem. None of it may be the agreement with everyone. But the first item would be that we don't understand the basis of 1.1%. I certainly don't. I don't know where that came from. So there's a number that why is that number there? And I don't even know how to go about telling the board, you should be considering this, that, and the other. I mean, you have other citing agreements that have certain dollar figures that are largely different than what's produced here. But we don't know where this came from because the board, who wants input from us, didn't bother to tell us from their committee where this number came from. So instead of them telling us so we could analyze and provide feedback, they threw the number at us and said, please provide feedback. Well, we don't know where it came from. We don't know how to provide feedback to that. So the second item, similarly, what was the basis for that from the committee? Why did the committee feel like affordable housing was a proper use of the money? And how did they determine that 25% of the citing agreement was a proper number to use? We have no basis for that. We don't know. We have no background, no information. We weren't provided any of this in a work session. We were just told, here's something, give us some feedback on it. Well, our only feedback so far has been from those who have commented on that. We don't understand where it came from and why it's important. And for item 4, again, the number given to us by the committee with no background basis or any kind of valuation of loss that someone might have had who lives next to a solar field for any reason, they produced a number out of thin air as far as we can tell, because we got nothing from the committee explaining anything to us. We did get the memo from the committee, which basically restated what they handed us. But there's no background or basis for anything. But what they want us to do is they want us to do some analysis and give the thing back to them. The only thing I know of to do, and this is, you may feel some frustration, I apologize.
That's okay.
I apologize. But the thing I'm trying to get to by striking at least 2 and 4 is saying, you've given me no information. I have no concept of how to do an analysis. I don't know what you want from me. And for us to do an analysis would require a lot of information, a lot of background, a lot of thought process. It would require something other than, here, do this in a public hearing without any background, and you get into the public hearing, and it's like, oh, you wanted what? Well, we're not built to handle this now. And the proposal to do something like that, I mean, we've had the public hearing. We clearly have to act on it in another month. Otherwise, we're done. There's really no time to do this. So the frustration I'm feeling right now is being handed something by the board that we were given with no information to get anything done with. And the request is, tell us what you think. Well, the only thing I know of to tell them what I think is, I think there's a lot of stuff that ought to be cut out because you didn't tell me how you got it. And what I really don't understand, this thing was, if I read the minutes right, was adopted as a policy at a board meeting. And I don't understand why there wasn't conversation at the board meeting to adopt it as a policy. I think there was a voice vote. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and if I am, I apologize. But how could that have been adopted as a policy without having any conversation about why any of this was valid and then thrown to us for the ordinance side of it? It seems to me like the committee should have had to defend their position to the board before it could have been adopted as a policy. So I'm, at this point, trying to follow through Robert's rules. Have I misstated anything for anybody on the commission? I don't know how to write up something like that, other than to say, we don't get it, you didn't give us any information, so how can you ask us to give you some help? Mr. Barlow.
I would say use Mr. Curtis's motion. And like I told you, it was sent here for the planning commission to go through it and come up with something. Not saying you had to stick with these items that are on here, but come up with something, a way we would handle these, maybe going through the citing agreement stuff. At this point here in the discussion, my recommendation is to do like Mr. Kersey said, send it back to the board with only number 3 And if the board chooses to come up with some further clarification, send it back to the planning commission, do that. But y'all, you're not getting anywhere now.
Exactly.
So just do the item number 3 and send it on.
And certainly, just send it back, we agree to item number 3. Tells them there's a whole lot of we don't agree with.
Well, and I mean,
Everything
you could
else.
say items 1, 2, and 4. We don't feel we have enough information.
And make a decision on it.
Yeah.
This meeting is recorded, isn't it? They-
It is.
So the supervisors can visual in and
They can.
listen to the discussion and see what went on.
They can. So then the amendment that we were talking about, since a friendly amendment was accepted, would be simply to say that the commission does not have sufficient information to properly comment on items 1, 2, and 4.
That's a nice motion.
I'll accept that.
Agreed.
Any further discussion? Ms. Johnson, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
No.
Mr. Goodwin?
No.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very good. All right, motion passes. Very well. Then we'll move on to public hearings. The public hearing on the list tonight, CUP 2024-08, Arcola Towers. Ms. Moyer.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. Before you tonight is the CUP 2024-08 for Arcola Towers LLC applicant, Clarence and Evelyn Washington owners, and Stuart Squire as the agent. The request is for the issuance of a conditional use permit for a 197-foot telecommunications tower with a 2-foot lightning rod for a total height of 199 feet in the A2 zoning district, in accordance with Section 86-154 permitted uses with a conditional use permit and a wireless communication facility greater than 100 feet in height in accordance with Section 86-665 permitted uses table of Division 5 telecommunications regulations. Also, the request is to find the project in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan. The property is located on Charles Lane, Route 707, approximately half a mile from Courthouse Road, Route 208, and is further identified as tax map parcel 56-15 in the Patrick Henry election district. The 2040 Louisa Comprehensive Plan designates this area of Louisa County as rural outside of any designated growth area. The Board of Supervisors adopted a public facilities plan on February 20th, 2024 as an amendment to the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Implementation of the recently adopted public facilities plan allows the county the ability to identify the impacts of proposed development and offers the means to consider proposed mitigations. Staff has provided an analysis of the proposed project on pages 14 and 15 of your staff packet. Virginia State Code Section 15.2-2232 is a review for conformance with the comprehensive plan and is required for any utility. Chapter 3 of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan states the plan protects Louisa's rural character and provides for efficient delivery of public services. Staff recommends the Planning Commission find the requested application to be in substantial conformance with the 2040 Louisa County Comprehensive Plan and Public Facilities Plan, as the proposed tower would provide additional coverage. The applicant has a letter of intent from Verizon Wireless, and the proposed tower is located between two growth areas, Ferncliff and Louisa. It is located off of Courthouse Road, Route 208, which has an annual daily average trips of 6,200. The 2007 Telecommunications Master Plan projected theoretical coverage for the 2020 map shown on the current slide does not propose a tower in this area of the county. However, since the wireless services has increased Since the creation of the 2020 map, technology and the demand for wireless services has increased. Therefore, staff finds the proposed wireless tower at this location complies with the master plan as it may provide improved wireless coverage for the county. A neighborhood meeting was held in the Louisa County Public Meeting Room on June 12, 2024 at 4 p.m. at which 2 citizens attended. A recap from that meeting can be found on packet page 16. Our new consultant, Alteris, reviewed the application and recommended approval of the proposed conditional use permit, and their letter can be found on pages 84 through 89 in your staff packet. Staff recommends 22 conditions for consideration. If the conditional use permit is recommended for approval, these conditions can be found on packet pages 18 and 19. This concludes staff's report. I'm here to answer any questions. And the applicant is also here to give a presentation as well.
All right, are there any questions for the staff at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Goodwin?
I assume that since there is no reduction in the acreage for the site, the project, that the CUP applies to the entire parcel.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Very well, then I'd like to move on to the public comment period. And open the public comment period. And the first person allowed to speak generally, according to our bylaws, is the applicant. We invite the applicant forward to speak for 10 minutes on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, great. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, my name is Stuart Squire, zoning consultant to Arcola Towers. And I have with me here tonight Ryan Foltz of Arcola Towers, who's the developer of this project. So I'd like to first thank staff for all their assistance with helping us get this application together. I had a lot of questions, and they were always very generous with answering them. And so I don't want to belabor any of the details of the basic details. So we are located at 79 Charles Lane, just down Courthouse Road from here. We are on a 6.94 acre parcel, which is currently completely wooded. It is owned by our property owners, the Washingtons. They have owned the property since 1981. There are currently no structures on it, and they have no plans to develop the property any further. You can see the parcel there in the center. And so the main point of this project, it's being driven by Verizon Wireless radio engineers. They have identified coverage issues in this part of Louisa County. There are 2 existing Verizon Wireless sites. One is actually right behind the building here, and that's our Louisa Courthouse site. And then a few miles down the road, we have our Butler Store site. This property is about midway between them, and so is the perfect location to fill in some coverage gaps in the area, as well as offload traffic from the existing Verizon Wireless sites. And so we did our site acquisition diligence and located this property based on Verizon Wireless engineers' input. And the Washingtons really have the perfect property here in the middle of our search ring. It's fully wooded. It will remain so once construction is complete. And then again, here is our site layout. We're approximately 540 feet back from Charles Lane. There's currently a gravel driveway there. We're going to use that driveway entrance, improve it slightly, no tree clearing will be done beyond what is necessary to get our access drive back, and then a 50-foot by 50-foot fenced compound area that will contain the tower and the base station transmitting equipment. And so here is an elevation view of the structure. This is a monopole design. It's a single pole. There will be no guy wires or no steel lattice like with a lattice tower. The overall height of the structure is 199 feet, which is below the FAA threshold that would require lighting, so this structure will not be lit and will not create any lights at night. Verizon Wireless antennas will be at the very top of the structure, I think the 192-foot center line, and then the structure will be designed to accommodate 3 additional carriers below Verizon Wireless so that future carriers like T-Mobile could co-locate on this structure. We're going through our federal regulatory review process. We have received our determination of no hazard from the FAA. We're also currently going through the NEPA review. We've received SHPO approval, and we expect full NEPA approval next month. I heard your discussion about visual impact of solar arrays. Obviously, we can't hide a 199-foot monopole, so we did conduct a what we call a balloon test to study the visual impact of the structure on the surrounding area. We conducted this test October 7th. This is our overall location view. The green circles indicate where the balloon was visible from. And this was a 5-foot balloon that was flown at the height of the proposed structure at 199 feet. The area of visibility is right around it on Charles Lane. The red circles indicate where we took photographs but could not find the balloon. So once the tower is constructed, it would also not be visible from the red locations. This is the existing gravel entrance that we're proposing to use to access the facility. We would improve this, but it would remain about a 10-foot wide gravel access drive back to the location on the property where the facility is located. The existing trees largely screen the balloon from this point on Charles Lane. However, as you continue, I believe, north on Charles Lane, this is the area of the greatest visibility of the tower, just behind this residence that is at the corner of Charles Lane and our access drive. Here is a simulated view of the structure. You can see it's quite visible there, but beyond this location, we find pretty heavy mature tree cover that would screen views of the facility from the neighborhood back behind it. And then this is further back in the neighborhood on Charles Lane. This is the house at the corner of Charles Lane and Courthouse Roads. You can see the balloon there above the existing house. And these are the neighbors who attended our community meeting, and they had some questions about the project. You can see it is visible above the trees. These trees will remain in place, though. There is a small sliver of property between the Washington's property and these residents that we don't have control over, so those trees could never be cleared by us. Furthermore, the Washingtons have no plans to clear their property, and so these trees would largely remain to screen the lower portions of the monopole. And this is the simulated view of the tower just above the trees. It is visible, but again, it is a 199-foot structure. We did conduct a second balloon test yesterday in order to work with the residents at this address, and they were pleased with the visibility here. They were concerned that it was closer to their house than they at first believed, but once seeing the balloon, they were satisfied that it was far enough away that it wouldn't be too much of a negative impact on them. And we're continuing with the visual study. This is an existing gas pipeline that is nearby. We could not see the balloon from this location. This is I apologize, it's the next road south on Courthouse Road from Charles Lane, not visible. More not visible photos here. this is the neighborhood to the north, also not visible. So I just want to emphasize that this location was chosen by Verizon Wireless radio engineers to fill in a coverage gap, particularly along Courthouse Road as the road drops down to the South Anna River. We know that there's some coverage issues there. This would fill in between two existing sites to alleviate the burden on those existing sites and improve coverage for Louisa County. So that is all the information that I had to share. Happy to stand by for any questions of the commission.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on with the public, and we might call you back.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any member of the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item? Very well. Then normally after the public speaks, the last speaker is the applicant again, who can come up for 5 minutes and address whatever they've heard. Not sure you have anything to address from what you've heard.
No, sir. Again, just happy to stand by to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right, thank you. In that case, then I'm going to close the public comment period. Public comment period is closed, and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Goodwin.
question of the applicant. You went back out and flew a balloon a couple of weeks ago, did you say, for the neighbors?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. Did you happen to go back to any of your original locations where you took pictures and take pictures again of those sites?
Ryan was there. I think he can speak to that.
Hi, Commission. My name is Ryan Foltz. I'm with Arcola Towers. We did not, because when we flew it, it looked the same from when we were at the neighbor's property. So we did not go back and double check everything, but when we were at the neighbor's property, it was of the same height. So I didn't see a need to go do that.
Mr. Goodwin.
Snarky comment.
Yep.
It seems like all of our pictures come in when the leaves are on the trees. They're deciduous trees, every one of them. And
I can fly another one and do it without
I'm
them
not
there.
asking you to.
Oh, okay.
It's just, that's what we get to see, and we don't get to see what the worst case is, which is the wintertime when everything's bare. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other commissioner?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles.
I happened to be at that neighborhood meeting when the couple came out, and they were very much in favor of it. And since that time, they had requested, they didn't actually request another balloon. They offered to fly another balloon, and they did that yesterday. But they did that only because the people that were in agreement with it just basically had some concerns, and they said, you know what, we'll fly another balloon out there for you. So as far as them actually taking pictures, they had already done their due diligence the first time, and they didn't see it didn't be necessary to repeat the whole process, but only to satisfy the people that were closest to the project and the people that showed up to the neighborhood meeting. Just wanted to make that clear. Is that concise?
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Very good. Other comments from commissioners? Very well, then, Mr. Quarles, I believe this is in your district, so the chair would be looking for a motion on this item.
Well, actually,
Am I correct or incorrect?
there are two things here. We have to make a motion that it is in conformance to the comprehensive plan, 15.2.2232. That is one. And the other would be that I would make a motion to take this up to the board with approval.
Let's take these one at a time if we
Okay.
can. So go ahead and make your motion on the first item.
So the first one, I'm basically that it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Very well. Motion that the project is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Very well. Ms. Johnson?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Dissensway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well. Motion passes. And for your second motion, Mr. Quarles?
Second motion is that we pass CUP, we send CUP 2024-08 to the board for approval.
Second.
Motion is second to recommend to the board approval of CUP 2024-08. Any further discussion on this? Very well. Ms. Johnson?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Dissensway?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Well, the CUP is, the recommendation is approved, and that takes care of that. So we'll move on now. We don't have any new business for the month. Next up, combined discussion and reports. Ms. Buckler, do we have a report?
Nothing specific. Chair Dissensway, we will be working on the next phase of amendments, and hopefully we'll have some items to bring forward in February for y'all's review. And that's really it.
Mr. Goodwin?
Thank you. Ms. Buckler, where are we on dealing with Mr. George's issue? He said he'd been working with staff and he appreciated you all's help. Can we get him in the lineup to get either an exception or something that we can get him out of this?
The ordinance, there aren't any provisions where staff can give an administrative exception to the requirements. It could be that we work with the specific project that he's on right now. It may be like a temporary occupancy if that's something that holds up any type of final inspection. But he is, the items that he has brought forward as concerns are things that staff is looking at with the next set of amendments that we're working on.
Okay. So there's no way we could just fast track him with an exception and say we're not gonna enforce this ordinance because, and the guy's trying to get out from under this hammer that's hanging over his head between us and Dominion, and I'd like to see us be able to get it. It doesn't seem like we're gonna be able to move the other party. So we gotta figure out something on our side of the fence to do something to help him.
Commissioner, good evening. Tom Eglin, Louisa County Community Development. The Overton Fork has a building permit in-house under review for the replacement of the common area docks. A recent revision has just come in late last week, so the permit's still in review. So both Dominion Energy and the county will have to review the revision. So I'd estimate that would take a week or two, depending on us catching up in the holiday. So we have also, in case that review goes quickly, the Community Development Department, as Linda alluded to, has come to an agreement with the HOA that if we provide a building permit approval, that there is a contingency that they will not receive their final inspection and certificate of occupancy until a dry hydrant is installed and a bathroom is installed. However, hopefully by the time that the project is approved and built, a code amendment will have occurred that it gives staff the flexibility to not or to require or not require the bathroom, and the same for the dry hydrant.
Thank you. I appreciate you all working with him on that. He's trying to get out from under this thing, and anything we can do to help him, I'd like to see us do that.
He's been in the last 3 meetings, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Yes, and he emailed me, I think maybe a month before that, explaining that he's between a rock and a hard
Yes,
place.
he is.
What
Yes, he
we're
is.
requiring and what Dominion won't allow. So,
And
I'd like to get him some help, and I appreciate what you all are doing. I really do. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. And one other item, Ms. Buckler. this is something that was brought up about a year ago, and I know there was transition with Mr. Gillespie leaving, and also I wanted to bring it up again, just a request for a little bit of help somehow in the timing of everything, because we have a responsibility to consider what's in these packages and to provide the deep thought process for the board that they're looking for. And it seems like we're still getting these packages about 6 to 7 days prior to the meeting. Is there any way possible, I don't know that there is, but is there any way possible to give us a little wider window on that?
We can certainly work on that, and we were working very hard to get them out earlier. I think the holidays and the timing of things
Certainly.
has kind of put a crunch on some of the items. And also waiting for some review. I think the bylaws, and I'd have to look at them, talks about a week prior to the meeting is the timeline for the packages coming to the planning commission. So if that's something that you want to consider as far as the bylaws?
Well, it's certainly a minimum by the bylaws. I'm sure that it could be, overperformed without a change to the
absolutely right.
bylaws, but,
So it's something that we can certainly strive to improve on as we move forward in getting the information to you all
Mr.
sooner.
Chairman?
we appreciate that very much. Mr.
On
Brooks?
that, we had discussed, and they done it once, y'all done it once or twice. Once the application is deemed complete and accepted, it'd be a good time to send a copy of the application, that we won't have staff comments, anything like, that'll come at the week before. But if y'all could send a copy of the application, just an email copy to everybody, at least we get some advance notice of what's coming.
Okay.
Maybe, would help me anyway, to have something in hand before this 7-day clock starts.
Yes, sir. We will make that happen.
Very good.
If it doesn't add a whole lot to what y'all are doing, if it's just a matter of taking a PDF and sending it to the planning commission.
Exactly. The application, once it's deemed complete, is scanned as part of our processing. So sending it in an email is
Okay,
not anything that will take a great amount of time.
all right, that would help quite a bit, I
Yes,
think.
sir.
Thank you.
Very well. Then at this point, the chair would entertain a
So
motion
moved.
to adjourn.
Beat you, Alan.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you
Two
all.
motions.
Welcome, Troy. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse.
Sometimes it's a lot better.
Okay, I thought it was.
I can't hear you.
I said I'm not